What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Talk of the Tundra, your Green Bay Packers podcast as a proud partner of the Eurostat Podcast Network and the Blue Wire family. Folks, it is week 1 of the NFL football season. We are finally here. The Packers play meaningful football this week. As you're listening to this, they play in promptly 48 hours against the Philadelphia Eagles in São Paulo, Brazil. I am ecstatic. I am excited. And joining me to talk about this glorious time in our late summer, early fall lives is my lovely co-host, Jordan Chesky. Jordan, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm ready. I'm feeling the start of football season coursing through my veins. I'm getting very excited for this Packer season,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm glad that we can talk about what is actually going to happen rather than theorizing and predicting what could happen.
Mm-hmm.
It's good to talk about actual things rather than uh, thinking of scenarios that might not happen, but inevitably one scenario is going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. I'm excited to talk real football, see the results of the offseason come into fruition, see how this offense looks under the second year of under the helm of Jordan Love, how the new defense looks under Jeff Halfley. I'm There's a lot to look forward to. We talked about that a little bit last time with our predictions. If you haven't listened to that, go check it out. But I am excited for all of the fun narratives that are awaiting to be resolved this season. The biggest of which is whether or not they'll make the win the Super Bowl, which I think they just might. Which is contrary to what I said on the predictions pod. But my fandom is just telling me that they might and they have a chance, and I'm hoping they do.
Mm, mm.
Hmm. Hmm. Peculiar. But yeah, if you're familiar with the format of the show, usually we would give out cheeses right now and talk a little bit about the last game, but there was no last game. There's nothing to really talk about in the news. Uh, Shout out the new training staff. Knock on wood. Hold on. Ah, let me go knock on wood. 53 of 53 men on the roster practiced on what's today, Wednesday, on Monday, and but then Marshawn Lloyd was on the bike yesterday when everyone else practiced. So he practiced on Monday, had a injury rest day yesterday where he just was on the bike, and I could not tell you the last time that happened. Like for the Packers at the beginning of the season, where all of their rostered players are practiced. Usually
We're not
it's
talking about Christian Watson or
they,
obviously Eric Stokes, but there was other stuff going on with Eric Stokes too.
yeah.
Um, yeah, it is refreshing. It's nice to have full participation or nearly whatever percentage it is if you count Marshawn Lloyd's bike day as not being, but
Right.
it looks to be a healthy squad.
Mm-hmm.
It
Mm-hmm.
looks to be.
Did you see Eric Stokes' quote about what he plans on doing on the flight down to Brazil?
I saw 5 hour. He's at least gonna sleep for five
He's
hours.
gonna sleep 5 hours
They
and
are
then
leaving as we are recording this
yeah,
very early
early Wednesday.
pre yeah. So we're timing it with their flight. So this pod is going to be as long as their flight, correct?
If you have 10 hours of content, we can get there.
No. That
But
would be like a charity marathon or something.
Eric Stokes said he's gonna sleep for 5 hours, and the other 5 hours he's going to quote "thug it out," which is a very funny thing to do while he's on a
What does
plane to
that
Brazil.
mean?
I don't know what it means, but I don't know what that means
Provocative.
in the context of I'm trapped on a plane with all my teammates headed to
Yeah.
Brazil. But no more of the fodder. Let's get right into it. Packers Eagles week 1. The Packers are 28-16 lifetime against the Eagles in their 44 regular season meetings since 1933. 1-2 against the Eagles in the 3 times they've played in the playoffs. The Packers have opened their season against the Eagles 3 times before. The Packers have won all 3 of those openers, which bodes well for the vibes. The last Packers Eagles matchup came as a 40-33 loss in Philadelphia in November 2022. Notably, the game where Jordan Love came in to replace an injured Aaron Rodgers, and we saw the very first glimpse of what Jordan Love could be could be really about, as he went 6 for 9, 113 passing yards, and a touchdown. A lot of those passing yards coming on that touchdown, which was a crossing route to Christian Watson, who then proceeded to burn the rest of the defense. I remember specifically watching that touchdown, and they showed Matt LaFleur on the sideline afterwards dapping up Jordan Love, and it was like, oh, that's a lot of emotion. Like, it was a big play, it was an exciting play, but I don't think we saw that level of like hype and excitement around too many Aaron Rodgers touchdowns. Like, that was the one of the bigger smiles I've seen from Matt LaFleur uh, on the sideline, which kind of like I can't think of the word at the moment. Foresight, maybe. I don't.
Prescient,
What do you say?
prescient.
Yeah, of just like what we were coming to expect in the coming months after the darkness retreat. But you know what I'm getting at.
Literally, the whole year was a darkness retreat.
It was, but um, it'll be the second international game the Packers play under the NFL's international series. The first coming in 2022 against Jordan's favorite Tommy DeVito New York Giants. Or no, that
Free
wasn't Tommy DeVito.
DeVito.
that was Daniel Jones.
Hmm.
I forgot they played the Giants 2 years in a row. I think that Giants game is the game where Rodgers hurt his thumb slash ankle.
The
Yeah,
Hail Mary attempts.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
That was literally when the season started going sideways that year. Not that they were convincing wins before that, but
right.
that might be the demarcation line
Hmm.
uh, for the year.
Yeah, I think that's appropriate. Which is like in my mind funny because the Packers were always like, I don't know, don't really want to play an international game, take away a home game from our fans and our local economy, and because like it's just far to send our players, and then they promptly lose to the fucking Giants.
That well, and then the addition of the 17th game
Yeah,
softens the blow. Like you're guaranteed at least eight
at least
home
8,
games now,
right?
so you're
So
not taking away from that pie. But
exactly.
yeah, I think that is the kind of interesting difference in this time is that um London, they were there like pretty much the whole week. Like they had gotten, acclimated, time difference, all that stuff. This time around, it's not like there's that much, you don't have to worry about as much of a time difference, but the difference in altitude, obviously coming off of like a more grueling travel day versus like, if it's like the closest equivalent that the Packers would have traveling is like going to Denver, but that's not as long of a flight, obviously, because it's within the United States. But the altitude is definitely different in terms of what you're gonna have to get used to. And I wonder how, for as conditioned and raring to go, it is a difference having to get used to that for your first game rather than you're in the middle of the season. You might be fresher, but you don't have any injuries to worry about. But it's also like the curve of having to acclimate to altitude change. I'm saying this as I know that there's an altitude change. I don't know. I just read these things and
There
just
there
assume that
is. It's not
it
as
is.
significant as Denver. Denver
What
is
what is the altitude in Sao Paulo?
2,500 feet, so it's half of Denver.
Okay, that's nothing. We got this in the bag. That's what I'm gonna say right now.
Yeah, like as compared to um, Mexico City, which is 7,300 feet. So it's half, 50% bigger, 50% higher in the air than Denver is.
Yeah,
So Sao Paulo, whilst definitely higher than little old Green Bay, it's not
yeah.
as bad as Denver. So it should be just fine. I'm trying to think like if there would be a city. I'm sure there is, just in general, where they would play football at a similar elevation in the states. That doesn't matter. We're getting into air talk during Packers football week. Um, so a little bit of a precursor of the Eagles off season. A lot of change for them. Um, Jordan, let's go through the what's changed, departures, and additions things for the Eagles, and then we'll talk about this Ringer article that came out earlier this week. Uh, for the Philadelphia Eagles, a lot of departures, a lot of high name departures. Fletcher Cox retired for them. Star center Jason Kelsey retired. They traded Hassan Reddick to the New York Jets, who promptly isn't playing for them at the moment because
The only
the
holdouts.
only holdout,
Uh, yes.
because I forget Joe Douglas, right? Yeah, Joe Douglas doesn't know how to operate a team apparently. They lost Kevin Biard in free agency. They lost DeAndre Swift in free agency and Nicholas Morrow in free agency. However, they did add Saquon Barkley, Bryce Huff, Jahan Dotson in a trade with the Commanders. Mekhi Becton, who I think was the old Jets lineman, if I'm not mistaken. Devin White as a reclamation project from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And C.J. Gardner Johnson from, I believe, the Lions, if I'm not mistaken. That's where he was previously.
Old friend for
Old,
them.
yeah. Started his career with them. I think won the Super Bowl with them, and then
No, they lost the year.
oh yeah, lost that. Yep, my apologies. They
Yep.
went to the Super Bowl that year, and then I think was traded to the Lions, and then now has come back. Um, so a lot of turnover for them at price or at places where it really matters, particularly um, the center position with Jason Kelsey. But I'm going to apologetically butcher this author's name. I think it's Sheil Capita with the Ringer.
Sheil Kapadia.
Capadia, thank you.
Yeah.
Wrote this article late last week, titled "The answers to these 5 questions will determine whether the Philadelphia Eagles go boom or bust." And boy, howdy, is it an article? I'm just gonna read.
It's a good primer,
Mm-hmm.
as Adam McGee has instructed me to pronounce that word over many years. Primer for
I'm saying
just
primer.
this Eagles season. I know it's better to say primer, but it's a good primer for just how, as the article details, boom or bust this season could be for the Eagles. Like their ceiling is a Super Bowl winning team, and their bust is, I wouldn't say missing the playoffs, but you never know. Like they played down the playoffs pretty spectacularly last year
I think bust
after
is for sure
sliding.
missing the playoffs. I think if they miss the playoffs, Sirianni gets fired.
Oh yeah, yeah. I just don't know how possible that is or
Oh,
probable that
I
is.
see what you're saying. What is the
Yeah,
bust line? Could it be higher?
yeah.
Got it. So the 5 questions are: will the Sirianni experiment work? The second is: what version of Jalen Hurts will we get? The third is: how much of an impact can Vic Fangio have? Can Jalen Carter make the leap? And will the Saquon Barkley signing pay off? And I like all 5 of those questions matter a whole lot in the context of how good this team can be. The first one was the one that kind of made my eyes go wide while reading it because it seems like there's just this active tension in the Eagles locker room just with Nick Sirianni. It from this reporter's reporting, duh, doesn't seem like Jalen Hurts likes Nick Sirianni all that much. He's kind of indifferent towards him, which is not ideal to have that relationship between uh, your coach and your quarterback. They apparently the Eagles. ESPN reported earlier this offseason the Eagles were one of the teams that were discussed in hiring Bill Belichick. Decided against that. I'm trying to see where the other. Yeah, Howie Roseman, their GM, made all the hires on his staff. Usually, that's a head coach's job. Is you get the hire coach gets to hire his staff, including his coordinators. That isn't what happened. Like their GM, Howie Roseman, good GM for all intents and purposes. Probably a great GM if we're being truly honest, with how he wheels and deals and gets gets players just on crazy value. Howie Roseman hiring Kellen Moore, the old Boise State quarterback, the old Cowboys offensive coordinator, is pretty crazy. Like that you're not even letting your head coach make his staff decisions. So that's a big ominous cloud like the one in Nope hanging over the Philadelphia Eagles uh team right now.
Yeah. I think there's a good parallel between Nick Sirianni and Matt LaFleur, who have these incredibly successful like career one loss records. Like if you read this article and you go through it and it's like, yeah, Nick Sirianni, he went to the Super Bowl. He went to um or he went to the Super Bowl in his second year. He has like what is he?
He's 34-17 with 3 playoff appearances and Super Bowl berth.
Yeah, like undoubtedly successful,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of taking into
Yeah,
context of where
on
the Eagles are
paper
at.
successful.
Yeah. But I think the difference between, say, like Matt LaFleur, who, we can rattle off the three straight seasons of 13 win records, or, 3 straight years of 13 win seasons, going to a playoff appearance. Like, has one of the highest winning percentages in NFL history, like equivalent to like George Seifert. Yeah, I mean, because he inherited the Packers and George Seifert inherited the 49ers with like Steve Young and all that stuff. But whereas Matt LaFleur has agency to pick his third defensive coordinator in his 6 seasons, and when things don't go right or when changes have to be addressed, Matt LaFleur has the influence and the power to make those decisions and not have to worry about his job. Nick Sirianni, as this article you know details, is like a CEO head coach where it's not even the hires that he's making. It's the routines that the team goes through. It's the practice schedules. It's like things are done by committee, and not every franchise is going to operate the same way, and you can find success in doing things differently. But it does soften the blow of if things don't work well, or more importantly, if players aren't responding to a coach that they feel like is not influencing them in the right way, they can just take out the loose end. And I think that to me is like any skepticism I've had towards the Eagles, obviously in the face of a stunning collapse last year. It's because have they addressed the biggest question with this team? I don't know. I don't think it necessarily falls on the coordinators that took the fall for a bad end of the year. I mean, Matt Patricia literally is following Bill Belichick to every media job that he's getting right now.
Did you see the
That
clip from
I did, and it's
dude? It's
hilarious.
a jump
It's
scare.
amazing.
It's a jump
It's a
scare.
jump scare, but it is just like. By the way, good luck with that with whatever team is going to make Bill Belichick their next head coach next in like 7 months.
Oh yeah.
But
I will say,
um,
off topic. Sorry.
no, no, it's fine.
Seeing Bill Belichick like talk and be a media person is going to be really cool. Like Bill Belichick, the person is questionable in a bunch of other ways,
Yeah, but it
but
is
Bill
just like
Belichick,
a start.
the football mind, is
Yeah,
beautiful, and watching him
but it
explain stuff
is
is really cool.
it is funny to. It will be really funny to go from Bill Belichick being like, "We're playing the Sims," like in front of
Yeah,
and
imagine
then
he
now
just
has to like
blossoms now that he gets used to
ham it
talking in front
up.
of a camera. He's all of a sudden really forthcoming in press conferences, almost too
So you
forthcoming.
said you said in this that blah, 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 like yeah, he's gonna be like Jay Leno, personality of Jay
Yeah.
Leno. Anyway,
Anyway, sorry.
um, I just think it's a really fascinating, and quite honestly, the answer might just be that Sirianni's gonna get fired regardless. You mean like the threshold there is ever since getting rid of Andy Reid, who was there for 12 years or 13 years in Philadelphia. They moved on from Chip Kelly in like 3 4 years.
Failed
Doug
experiment.
Peterson, a
Yep.
Super Bowl winning head coach, got fired in 3 or 4 years.
2 years, I think 2 years after the title win.
Yeah,
I think
and
they
now
won it in 16, 15, 16,
18
18.
or 17 season,
Oh, yeah.
2018
Yeah,
Super Bowl.
I had the timeline backwards. Yeah.
Yeah, but this is Sirianni in his fourth year. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
things just kind of reached that point of if it hasn't worked out now, we're gonna get rid of him.
Yeah,
That's just how they operate.
yeah, exactly. Um, similarly, when talking about coaches, Vic Fangio comes from Miami, and I think that dynamic is interesting too. Wasn't liked the most in Miami by the players. Seemingly, there's been a lot of quotes out of the Dolphins camp about Vic Fangio just up and leaving them after last season. And Vic Fangio, obviously a coach of yesteryear. He's older. He runs older style defenses and has what's the word? Not reservations, but holds ideals and practices of older style coaches. Doesn't like how much they don't practice anymore. Things like that has been quoted talking about those things, and so how his philosophy translates to these obviously younger players, it's going to
Mm.
be interesting. Um, since directing his this is a stat on Fangio from that Ringer article. Since directing the 49ers defense under Jim Harbaugh, Fangio has had 8 seasons as a coordinator or head coach, 4 with the Bears, 3 with the Broncos, and 1 with the Dolphins. In those 8 seasons, he's produced a top 10 defense based on DVOA just once. So it's not just a pencil in Vic Fangio get this defense back to where it was kind of situation for them. They certainly could. They still have questions. Um I believe they're starting Darius Slay for the starting cornerback spot. He's 33. The only person um the NFL had exactly one corner in the entire NFL who was 33 or older last year who started at least 10 games. That was Patrick Peterson. Otherwise, but they drafted Quinyon Mitchell out of Toledo, I believe is where he was from out of college. And then they drafted our darling, rather my darling, Cooper DeJean at 40. So two guys that can definitely play. Cooper DeJean was, I think, injured earlier this camp and was having a tough couple of preseason games, but they're both going to be slotted in to be playing a lot of snaps as rookies. So how well that secondary is going to be able to defend this year, especially against an offense like the Packers, where they have speed and Christian Watson, dynamicism, which I don't think is a word. um,
Dynamism.
Dynamism, thank you. Uh, in Dontavian Wicks and just great receivers in Reed and Dobbs. It's gonna be interesting how that plays out on Friday, but yeah, well, it's a big we'll see for I think this defense and Vic Fangio this year.
Yeah, especially when you don't have who's the anchor to like they still have veteran voices in that locker room. Bringing CJ Gardner Johnson after, pretty injury riddled year last year at Detroit will probably help some. But it's either they're really young in a secondary that needs to prove itself again. Darius Slay is kind of like the old head, quote unquote. Um,
You can't say quote unquote. It's because he's like 2 years older than you.
Not even.
he's the old. He's the oldest player in the secondary for them. He's definitely the old head.
Yeah, he's just old.
There he is,
Um,
33 years old, walking out in the NFL field. Look at him go.
but I do think I think that the Fangio, the DVOA stat is just kind of indicative of, yeah, Vic Fangio, this guy that literally brought a defense that the other 31 NFL teams have, or I guess 28th, because he's worked for 4 of them at least since coming into his own. But they have copied or like tried to implement themselves. But it's not this foolproof system. It's you need the talent, you need the players to execute what they want to do. And whether that was in Denver when he was the head coach, or if it was in Miami last year, or forgetting where he was before Denver, Chicago. It's still like you need the talent, you need the quality of players to execute the way that you want to play because you can still say, "Oh, they're doing things right," and the teams are still carving them up. Like it could be a sense of this has been talked about for a very long time and tried to be repeated throughout the league that people just have a better sense of what to do. Yeah, I mean that's kind of as we talked about with defense coordinator searches over the last couple of years. It's like, do you go back to that well, or do you try to forge a new path of building a scheme that you want to be copied and pasted around the league and all that stuff.
Right.
So I think that's where it could be very interesting to see how that team responds to a crusty old man.
Made him sound like Mr. Krabs when he has his midlife crisis.
He's Ebenezer Scrooge, let me tell
Oh
you.
boy. Um. All right. I think enough from that article. We'll touch on a couple more of the points when we get into our preview here in a second. But yeah, shout out Sheil Kapadia. There we go. For that article because
He also does. I have listened to the Ringer NFL show. I think his work is really good, and he also does the Philly special, like the Philadelphia uh, Ringer podcasts. Yeah,
oh, got
the
it.
Ringer has like specific city podcasts that they
I
do.
did not know that.
Hmm.
Oh my god, they have so many pods, which like is their thing now. I understand that,
I
but
was gonna
like
say that is their thing.
you hover over the podcast tab on their website and it just fills your monitor.
It does.
um, okay, so let's get into the nitty gritty a bit for this this Packers Eagles matchup. I think the biggest thing we're looking at least Jordan and I are looking at, is this is the first test for defensive coordinator Jeff Hadley's defense against a, on paper, again, I'll say, high powered offense. Because, like, Jalen Hurts is still Jalen Hurts, still a good quarterback. And pair that with A.J. Brown, who is one of the probably top six receivers in the NFL. I think that's appropriate.
Yeah,
Uh, Along with Devonta Smith, former Heisman winner out of Alabama. And then they just traded for Jahan Dotson, as I mentioned earlier, from the Commanders. I don't really know how much time he's going to get on the field. I was a Jahan Dotson believer. I think he kind of got lost in the fray that is the hellscape of the Washington Commanders offense because he
I
had a
would certainly
really
agree with
good
that.
rookie year, but then I think Sam Howell just didn't like throwing to him because like Terry McLaurin still had a good year. Brian
Curtis
Robinson,
Samuel was on that team.
yep, Curtis Sam was on that team. He had a decent year, but it was almost like they just didn't work him into the offense as much. And I think he's a talented player, and I think if they can get him in working in the offense in Philadelphia, he'll be really good. The only issue is that he's at most or at the highest like fifth fiddle in that offense because they have AJ Brown, Devonta Smith, Dallas Goddard, and Saquon to all give touches to before him. And so, however much he can, however whatever role he plays in the season, I think will come later in the season as he gets more acclimated with the offense and has a chance to sort of prove himself. But still, a pretty darn good wide receiver three to have in the first place. But
I was gonna say it's certainly an upgrade over what they had last year
is
because
that
you
Zach
go through.
Pascal?
No, he was gone on that
Is
team.
that 2 years ago? Yeah.
Uh, AJ Brown had 106 catches, 1,456 yards. Devontae Smith had a really good year, 81 catches, 1,066 yards. Go down the list. Dallas Goddard, DeAndre Swift was on the Eagles last year, obviously. Kenneth Gainwell, like their second string running back. Then you get down to Quez Watkins. He's
Former Badger, I think. Keith,
you're
Keith.
thinking Cephas,
Yep, I think you're right.
the guy that got banned for gambling
Yep,
when he was with the Lions. Did you know that Julio Jones was on the Eagles last year?
I did know that.
I forgot about that. They didn't really have. I thought they had like a three-headed monster with their receiving core last year.
No, it was very much the top two guys in Dallas Goddard, but I
Yeah,
think he
maybe
even
I'm
got
thinking
hurt
of the
earlier
Super
in the
Bowl
year.
year that was more like that, but I thought they had at least more of a dynamic
Not
wide
even,
receiver core.
not even. I think their Super Bowl year because I couldn't tell you who their third
Yeah,
wide
you're
receiver
right.
was at any point. Yeah,
Quez
but
Watkins was probably their slot, and then Zach
no,
Pascal. But yeah, I think Dotson could be. is a good play by them of just picking up someone that was underutilized, undervalued by a Commanders team that just doesn't know how to get out of its own way.
Yeah,
You know,
it's definitely a good bet. Like if it works out, it's a great bet.
what's crazy? And this is
What's crazy,
another
Jordan?
tangent. So the Commanders they announced this stadium rights deal for their stadium, the crappy poopy stadium that literally has poop flowing out of its pipes if not prepared properly. The stadium rights deal is with a company, if memory serves, it's called Pacific Northwest Stadium. Northwest Stadium. It's called Northwest Stadium. It plays in Washington, D.C., not Pacific Northwest. Now where the Seahawks play. Do you know how confusing that will be?
I
Can
think
you imagine?
I don't think it's going to be confusing because they're still the Washington Commanders. I do see your point. I do.
So it's the
I
Northwest Federal Credit Union, but it's headquartered in Herndon, Virginia.
I don't know, dog.
What?
Maybe it was Northwest Virginia.
I'm just saying, very confusing.
Very
Very
confusing.
confusing indeed.
And
With Washington.
oh, that was in fact a tangent. You were right. You were right. You properly named that quote. I don't know. It's early for me, folks. I apologize. um, but I think testing out the secondary, getting back to our original point, is that
Yes.
AJ Brown and Devonta Smith are really going to put pressure on Jaire Alexander and Eric Stokes. Like Devonta Smith is fast boy, like fast. AJ Brown is a skilled receiver, and so how Jaire can match up with AJ Brown, which yeah, AJ Brown was there 2 years ago when they played, and
Yeah.
Jaire Alexander probably would have covered him. I'm not entirely sure. I can look that up quick, but um, it's gonna
Either
put
him or
pressure on him.
Razul.
That's where I was thinking. I don't know if it was him
And
or
really,
Sewell.
they had a 40-point outburst, so I would imagine the numbers don't look good
I
for
I was
either
more so
Packers
looking
corner.
for um like matchup stats, because like
Oh, I know, but I'm just saying, like, what the Eagles ran rampant over that Packers team that year.
they did, they definitely did. Um, oh, this is the wrong thing, but regardless, like I think this new defense anchored by Xavier McKinney and that safety room, I think that's I guess a bit lofty for game one, but for sure Xavier McKinney and Jaire Alexander, I think have a good chance to really contain this wide receiver and pass catchers for the Eagles because they looked so good and there's just a lot more talent there than there was when they would have faced the Eagles in Week 12 back in 2022. Like at that point, we're starting, I think Adrian Amos, which is um like I don't want
Oh yeah, yeah.
to.
That would definitely have been his last year.
Yeah, I don't want to be like an asshole about it, but I think Xavier McKinney is just a better player. Um, Jaire Alexander did not cover AJ Brown, or was not targeted for AJ Brown, or no, maybe he was. Yeah, sorry, PFF's interface is dumb. He covered Devonta Smith for 3 targets, had 2 catches for 23 yards, no catches on 1 target for Quez Watkins, and no catches for 2 targets against AJ Brown. So
Hmm.
all good that way. And so if they continue to want to put Jaire on AJ Brown, that's probably the matchup Jaire wants because that's the kind of player Jaire is. I think
Yeah.
that would be a smart decision. Or, oh, you know what? I'm going to kind of piddle around here, but I want to see how Xavier McKinney did against the Eagles last year with
That is a good
with his uh with his thing. So
team that he's faced up plenty of times.
plenty of time, so he'll know that team very well enough. Like
Hmm.
I think that's going to be an interesting. This will be an interesting little thought, not thought experiment, but you know what I mean. Um, just game in general because you take the best corner or best safety in the league, put him up against a couple of those guys, gonna be doing pretty good.
Yeah,
He didn't cover AJ Brown at all last year in coverage. He did cover Dallas Goedert for 24 yards on 2 catches. I'll try and
yeah.
find the other game too, but I guess what are your thoughts on this secondary versus obviously these dynamic pass catchers?
Um, we can also throw in Saquon Barkley into the mix because he will,
He will be catching passes out of the backfield.
yeah, he will test the Packers defense in the ways that I just think it's more of like it's not even just the secondary; it is the linebacker core. It's the second and third level of the Packers defense that really is going to have to be on point. It just I could imagine they're going to be how's this for analysis? I can imagine where they're going to be they're going to size up and make like impact plays. They're going to have a it's the first game of the year. They're going
Yep.
to be ramped up. They're going to be all this stuff. But I think there'll also be moments of communications out there. You know, a lot of these guys didn't play preseason, so it's effectively their first game
Mm-hmm.
of true action of not just joint practices or whatever.
Right.
Um, I just think how what can you limit of the mistakes or the good plays
Mm-hmm.
is just kind of where it's going to be. I think for the secondary specifically, it's like yeah, Jaire. I mean, obviously, all eyes are on him and where he's going to be lined up, whether it's going to be primarily Brown or if they're going to switch it up. But not even just Stokes. I think it's like Carrington Valentine. Is he going to get some snaps on the outside? What
Probably a couple
is the slot? Yeah. Keyshawn Nixon, how does he handle someone like Jahan Dotson or whoever works out
in the
in the
slot.
slot for the Eagles? Um, Javon Bullard, who can kind of line up in as a safety or more closer to the line of scrimmage. I just think there's a lot of like, even if it doesn't work, I'm just, again, these are going to be data points of just how they're going
Mm-hmm.
to play. And it's not going to always be the same week to week, but based on the variety of players and their stylistically and how they best play, it is just refreshing to talk about a Packers defense that on paper is going to have different looks, different ways to utilize the kind of tools that they have. If you want to talk about people as tools, not terribly, not in a pejorative sense, but um, I'm just saying, you know what I mean? It's not going to be this blanket. We're gonna back off, kind of, you know, the Joe Barry way.
Yeah. Yeah. I think Jeff Halfley having this team play with some intensity is going to help a lot with this matchup in particular. Like AJ Brown's a big dude. Like you don't think of
Yeah.
a lot of receivers as big dudes. I think Calvin Johnson is like the biggest dude you can think of when you think of like big wide receivers. AJ Brown's not that, but AJ Brown is definitely like a strong go attack the ball receiver as opposed to like Devonta Smith is tiny. He's on the shorter side. He's real. I'm not gonna say real skinny, but he's like Kevin Durant. He's real lanky. Like he's just
Yeah.
real twitchy, fast. Not a whole lot of like actual muscle build to him. Just very fast and very skilled at the wide receiver position. So having them play a little bit rougher with these receivers, I think will help a lot. Like match AJ Brown's physicality, try to overpower Devonta Smith. Hopefully that works out well for
Mm.
him. Plus, like Dallas Goddard as like the safety valve is going to be a tough matchup too. Probably something that you'll see Quay in coverage for a little bit. Something you might see Edgerrin Cooper in coverage for a little bit. So hopefully that doesn't work out too poorly. Hopefully there's no Preston Smith in coverage, if you know what I'm saying, for Dallas Goddard.
No, I would not like that.
No,
It would not be a good look.
no. So, um, moving on to the other side of the, or let's keep it on to the same side of the ball for the Eagles. The Jalen Hurts' ability to throw the ball and as well run the ball is going to be on display as well. Packers, as you and I know, and as I'm sure all the fans listening know, uh, running quarterback for the Packers never really worked out well in the past for the Packers. They tend to give up a lot of yards to those running quarterbacks, and so um, in the two or in the 2022 game, Hurts was 16 to 28, threw for 153 and two touchdowns, and had 17 carries for 157 yards on the ground, which marks the highest rushing yards Hurts has had for a single game and one of two 100-yard rushing games of his career. He ran rampant against that defense. Like, it was bad. And I think that's in
Yeah.
part of why this game looked so poorly, is that if you give up 157 yards to the quarterback, I'm sorry, 157 rushing yards to the quarterback, it's not good, dog. Like
Literally, he's responsible for 310 yards,
he rushed more than he
all-purpose
passed.
yards. Yeah, yeah. I think that again, we're talking about a game that the Packers lost by 7 and they scored 33 points, but it was remembering that game, the Jordan Love drive was literally like the salve of like, oh my God, like they're kind of getting back into it
Yeah, it
after
was.
just being
They had to
down
put
bad.
the Eagles had to put their starters back in.
Yeah, they were down bad before the Love connection, all that stuff. So I think, yeah, like there's probably no better way to really see how this defense is going to respond to a dual threat guy like Jalen Hurts. I mean, Tommy DeVito, again, not to keep bringing this up, but like his ability to extend plays, his escapability in the pocket was a problem. And that's a guy that's not even starting for a Giants team that probably should start him if if everybody's being fair. um, but it so going from that level of like this quality of player that burned the Packers badly last year, now you take one of he's not like a Mahomes type, but at his ceiling, Jalen Hurts is like can be an MVP player. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
at his ceiling. Yeah,
And I think that's where it's going to be very interesting how Halfley who who is going to be the kind of QB spy. Is it going to be Quay, who's kind of he's obviously had the experience of doing that, play the Eagles too during his rookie year, but is it going to be Isaiah McDuffie? Is it going to be Cooper? Or is it going to be Tyron Hopper?
mm-hmm.
Like again, I'm excited, but that is I think more important of like how this game is going to go just based on how the Packers have just never been able to do that. And let's be fair, it's really hard
It's
to
hard to
defend.
yeah
Yeah,
quarterbacks
like
like
this
that.
is not just a Packers specific problem.
No,
It is an NFL wide problem. It's why Patrick Mahomes is the greatest quarterback of all time because he can do the thing. We don't think of him as a Michael Vick, but we think of him as, oh, this guy. Well, you know what I mean? Like, do you know
no,
what I mean?
no. I do know what you mean. He's not a run first quarterback like how Kaepernick and how Michael Vick were both able
Yeah.
to
Or
have,
Lamar.
or Lamar,
Yeah.
all have plays that they're able to just call the run for. Like
Yeah.
Andy Reid's not calling up QB draws for Patrick Mahomes throughout the game because that's not obviously not his strength. But
No.
what I do think is funny is you talk about like he's not Michael Vick. Both of them had cannons for arms. I think Michael
I
Vick
know
just
that. Yeah.
had um that extra bit to his game that made him absolute hell to play in Madden '05. But
Yes.
yeah, no, you're entirely right that if he gets in trouble, both of those QBs and Jalen Hurts can just scramble and make it play out of nothing. So it's definitely a
And it's
go on.
as much as it is about like the linebackers that spy on him, it's is is Rashawn Gary going to keep contained? Is the edge rusher? You know what I mean?
That's the biggest thing too is you have to keep containing off the edges, and I think that's going to be a big a big thing to watch for going into this game is can Lucas Van Ness or Preston Smith and I guess and Rashawn Gary be sure not to overextend into the pocket. Like I would be comfortable having like one sack or maybe two sacks if it meant not letting Jalen Hurts get out of the pocket. Like I'd
Yeah.
make Jalen Hurts a pocket passer, let him beat you that way. He's a capable pocket passer. Like I'm not saying that's the way you beat him is just by making him throw the ball. That's not the case. but removing that aspect from his game would be a big plus for the Packers going forward into this game and their chances to win.
Yeah.
Um, Flipping over to the Packers side of the ball in offense, Josh Jacobs makes his debut against the Philadelphia Eagles, obviously the team we're talking about, but uh, coming off of an albeit down year for a bad Raiders team out in Vegas. 2 years removed from his rushing title, where he went over 2,000 yards. Interesting to see what Josh Jacobs will look like this season. If he looks like the running back from 2 years ago, or if he looks more like last year. Hopefully, he's a little bit reinvigorated on a contending team and a team that believes in him, kind of thing. Like he chose to come here. I saw reported that he turned down more money from the Giants to sign with the Packers, so that's a plus for, I guess, just the Packers obviously in snagging him. But I think speaks to how much he wants to be in part of a winning culture, because the Giants
Yes.
isn't that at the moment. Like I think if he takes more money to sign with the Giants, he's just resigned to whatever they're building there in this year at the moment, because I think it's all kind of up in the air for the Giants right now. But Marshawn Lloyd was limited, as we mentioned, this going into this game with his hamstring that he had suffered week one, or preseason week one, against the Browns, and then obviously Emmanuel Wilson will be behind him. He had a bit of an injury, I think a hip injury, but he was limited, and I think is all set to go. I don't think it's anything serious, but I think for all intents and purposes, we're going to get a heavy dose of Josh Jacobs on the field. I would like to see Emmanuel Wilson there, obviously for personal fandom reasons, but realistically, I think it'll be a lot of Josh Jacobs there, being a three down back and catching passes out of the backfield and hopefully being a good runner. Um, like if you told me Josh Jacobs enters this game or I'm sorry, leaves this game with 100 yards, I'd be ecstatic, dude. Like just off the walls happy. Like they could lose the game, but if he had 100 yards and the team overall looked good, I think that bodes well for the Packers going forward. I think the biggest thing is like, does Jalen Carter stuff the middle up well enough to make Josh Jacobs kind of a moot point in the run game, because Jalen Carter, third year out of Georgia, and no, sec. I'm. This is gonna make me mad now. I
I think second.
Everything goes together, Jordan. Jalen Carter, da 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 da. 2023, second year. So, second year out of Georgia, was drafted, I think, ninth overall. I'm on his page. I can just look. Yeah, ninth overall. That was the Bears pick the Eagles had last year. Um, and it just a good player. He's big dude, 6'3", 314. Like he can stuff a hole for sure. He's a good run defender. And so depending on how sorry, depending on how well they can stuff those holes and make Josh Jacobs effective or ineffective is going to matter a lot. Sorry, I had to power through what I had just read. You know how they have nicknames on the reference pages?
Yes.
Jalen Carter's nicknames on the reference pages, or on Pro Football Reference, is Baby Rhino or Breadman. So I need to know the history on those, and we'll
Bread
talk about that
man.
later. But I saw that and I had to like power through.
Um, you were saying before bread man, uh, how much now I'm looking at bread man. Apparently it's something that he puts out on his own website.
Okay,
And he has a chef hat, a chef coat,
dude.
and a loaf of bread under that says bread man.
Okay, you were
Um,
saying about Josh Jacobs?
no, I think this kind of goes hand in hand with the O line. Jordan Morgan, especially, is I would assume he's gonna start. He's gonna play. Like as much
I think he'll play. I believe the
I think it's
beat
gonna be a
reporters.
rotation.
Yeah, I believe the beat reporters asked Matt LaFleur. I forget who it was between. If it was Sean Ryan, I think, or if it was
Yes.
like
It was Sean Ryan.
Yeah, they asked what are you planning on doing between Jordan Morgan and Sean Ryan at the starting right guard spot, and Matt LaFleur just said we have a plan. So obviously not wanting to give too much away week one sort of thing. So uh, I'd be intrigued. I would bet a small amount of money, not a large amount of money, that Jordan Morgan starts. But that's just my initial take.
Yeah. Um, but I just think that it's applies to the protection that the Packers will provide holding up against an Eagles defensive line that is going to be very different than what it was last year. How that affects their run game, because Lord knows we saw a lot of ineffective running last year. How much pressure that puts is put on Jordan Love to extend plays, to get his, how many reads is he gonna have to go through each and every play. It it's stuff that we will not obsess over when we're talking about the game after the fact. But if we're talking about Jordan Love running for his life, or Josh Jacobs is averaging 2 or 3 yards of the play, like, it will certainly go to say that the Packers O line just didn't hold up, you know, 1 cent. So I think that to me is going to be very key. As much as we kind of just pinned, like, this is the top five, this is all this stuff. Like, there's going to be rotations at least, and it might not be that this line finds their sea legs early on. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
it took a while last year for them to figure it out and to keep, Love contained and stuff like that. As
mm-hmm.
much as he had a clean pocket for a lot of times, but I just think you never know going into game one. Everything, literally anything is on the board of expectation wise, or what you think is going to happen and all that stuff. It's exciting, but again, it's also daunting at the same time that things can very slip before you get that muscle memory of repetition built in.
Right. And I think to your point earlier, this was the first time a lot of these guys are playing. Like Jordan Morgan, I think played a little more during the preseason than the rest of the line did. But like, look at Zach Tom. He was battling through a pec injury to start camp. He didn't play a whole lot in preseason, if at all. So just getting,
No, he's
I don't think he played any.
pretty sidelined throughout, if
Yeah,
not till the very end.
right. And so just getting these guys reps to start is going to be important. And I think you can glean stuff from how this game goes, obviously. Like if they look good and lose, that's fine. They looked good. The Eagles are a good team kind of thing. But if they look bad, and I don't think it's like hit the panic button. Obviously, there's 16 more games to play. It's a weird game in Brazil on a Friday. Routine is often everything from how guys usually prepare. It's a lot of excuses, but I think they're valid. And
Yeah.
so, but then again, they might just go out and win it. So, uh, the I'm excited to see how this run game looks at. Like I think that the two things I'm most excited for and most I guess eager to watch. I guess I'll list three. This isn't this isn't a new segment, by the way. This is just me cuffing off the cuff.
It can't be a new segment. Anything goes on the Talk of the Hunter podcast.
That's right. I don't know why you made that accent. First is how good the secondary looks. Like what they can do against this kind of offense. I think this is going to be one of the more high powered offenses they face this year. Like
On paper,
on paper.
with Kellen Moore.
Yep, on paper with Kellen Moore.
Yeah.
Um how the run game looks, because if they can get back to being good in the run game and having that sort of balanced attack on offense, I think that opens up a lot for play action in Jordan Love. And then third for me is just a healthy Christian Watson. Like, what does that look like in the scheme of the entire offense, right? How does
Mhm.
full speed Christian Watson open up things for Jaden Reed and Romeo Dobbs and Dontavian Wicks and company on the field throughout? And just, I think it's intriguing because he matters, right? Like that he's an important part to how this offense flows, and it'll be it'll be cool for sure. I think fourth and probably should be higher is just Jordan Love. Does he continue his play to how he ended last year? So That's what I'm hoping for as Jordan gets the slope going to the moon.
His ascent is as equal to the altitude of Sao Paulo.
Oh, I'd hope so because the last time he was at this elevation, he was not good against the Broncos.
True.
True.
As yeah.
Tough one.
Um, are we ready?
For score predictions?
Did we do something else with our predictions last year? Am I
Yeah, we did a
misremembering?
player to watch.
Do we do? I'm doing an on the air audible.
All right.
Do we do biggest fantasy day? Would that be fun?
Um, I don't hate the idea. It just takes the entire defense out of it. You know what I mean?
Unless.
What do you mean? You're just counting defenses? Defenses don't matter, Jordan. The Eurostep Fantasy Football League dress defense, and it's anarchy. Anarchy, I say. Shout out Keith for
Um,
running it. Thank you, buddy.
thank you, buddy. Yeah, I just want to incorporate. Fantasy's all the rage these days.
It is.
Uh,
I.
let's just do score
How
prediction.
about this? We'll do a player to watch, and we'll do a fantasy player, but we cannot be long-winded about it. I'm fine
No,
doing.
we'll just put a name.
Yeah, because I'm in 5 fantasy leagues, Jordan. I like fantasy. No, hold on. Two. Yeah,
What
5.
is this, George R. R. Martin?
5. Yeah, I have a problem. So
Yeah, you have more fantasy leagues than books written by that guy,
I think he's
George R.
written
R.
more than
Martin.
that.
Hasn't done it lately.
That's very true. Welcome to the pop culture podcast. Make time for this. um, okay, we'll do that. All right. What is your first thing to watch for, Jordan? Unless you want to do fantasy score first.
I'm gonna do player to watch. Josh Jacobs, easy narrative. Uh, just wanted to see him. Obviously, watched him play before, but it's different when you're wearing green and gold. You're immediately my best friend when you're wearing green and gold. But I just want to see him unleashed. I want to see him what he look. It's just gonna be very different. I was very used to watching Aaron Jones and loved watching Aaron Jones and how he fit within Matt LaFleur's offensive scheme and stuff like that. How does that change with someone like Josh Jacobs, who kind of gives the same tendencies, like stylistic play and all that stuff, but um, yeah, it could be different at the same time.
Good, good. Uh, Make sure you have an Eagles player ready as well too, because that's how we did this last year. We did both sides of the ball.
That is right.
Uh, you go Josh Jacobs. I will go Christian Watson. I want to see what he looks like, ready to go, fully healthy coming. He listen, Jordan. He's fully healthy coming in the season for the first time, I think, in his career. Right? He missed. I think games 1 and 2 in 2022 because he missed. He's
He
from.
didn't miss game 122. He missed a lot of camp that year
Well, no,
because that was the infamous the bomb that they threw that he dropped. It went
oh,
through his
that yeah, that
hands.
was game 1 against the Vikings, and then
Yeah,
he missed game 2 in Tampa
he
because
missed. Yeah,
he's from Tampa and didn't get to play in front of his home quote unquote home crowd. But yeah, Christian Watson is my pick. I want to see what he can do for this offense when healthy. Like I just went on that tangent a couple minutes ago. I won't reiterate it, but yeah, he's my Packers player to watch. My Eagles player to watch is Jalen Hurts. He needs to. We need to see what he does without Jason Kelsey and having the tush push at his disposal. Will they still try and run it? Probably, but a big part of why that play was so successful is Jason Kelsey's ability to push the line and be a one of the best starting centers in the NFL. And so, how they adjust to that, how they do on 4th and 1 or uh, down and distance within the 10-yard line, like goal to go near the end zone, I think is going to be important for this team. Jalen Hurts had a lot of rushing touchdowns last year because of that play. Other teams implemented it, including the Packers. Like there were plenty of teams that did this this play, and if they can continue doing it with not Jason Kelsey, they'll still be a hard team to contain within the that goal to goal distance, as well as on third and inches and fourth inches kind of thing. So let's just see how he plays. If he bounces back from his year last year and comes out hot and firing, maybe he'll have a better season. But yeah, we talked about earlier and how the secondary can hold up against these receivers. Everything else, yeah, I think he's just the guy to that needs to carry this team in this game.
Did you pick Hurts? Which I mean, it's obvious. I'm gonna go Saquon Barkley. We kind of talked about him a little bit, but this is obviously his Eagles debut. I'm gonna just take both running backs, obviously. But I think what does Saquon Barkley look outside of the Giants and just their
General yuckiness.
yeah. I think on paper, like this is he was a consensus number one overall pick when he was for his draft class. He didn't
Yeah,
go number one
for
overall,
the Giants. Yeah,
but he
I
was
think he went like
considered
4.
this.
I'll look it up.
You might be right. It was not. I don't think it was. Unless if it was two, I can't
It
remember. It doesn't
might
matter.
have been 2. I'm clicking on his page right now. It was 2.
It was two. So and that was the Baker Mayfield draft, I believe.
2018. I think that's right.
Yes.
Yep, it is. 3 was Sam
I
Darnold.
yeah. That's New York football tangent. It's a different time.
Yeah,
Um, I just wonder. I think he has the chance to be better utilized. I think he's. I mean, we saw the Eagles last year with DeAndre Swift, a lesser player, start off like gangbusters. Like he
right.
like really was kind of the engine to that fast start that the Eagles had. And then obviously as he trailed off, so did everything else for the Eagles. Um, but I think a guy like Saquon Barkley who can do pretty much everything that a running back can do in modern NFL, I think is can be better utilized, better maximize his talent with a team like the Eagles that obviously has a better supporting cast around him. That he doesn't need to be this engine like he had to be for the Giants when they had their one successful year out of however many since winning the Super Bowl in 2012. Um, I just think it's just what does that look like with the new environment? And again, this is a Packers team that having someone that can catch the ball as well as run the balls as Barkley and has given the Packers fits, even if it's not been like overwhelming games. Again, it's gonna just test them.
Yeah, absolutely. Who's your fantasy score?
We this will evolve over time because it's just, we're shooting from the hip.
Yep.
I'm gonna say Jaden Reed.
Ooh, good pick. Good pick. Um, are you just saying the Packers or both sides of the ball?
I'm doing Packers.
Okay.
This we'll just do
Okay.
Packers.
I'm going Christian Watson. Doubling up.
You God, I can't quit you.
I can't quit you. All right. Everybody's favorite thing to do, score predictions. Jordan, I yield my time to you.
I think it's gonna be a tight game. I'm gonna say Eagles 23, Packers 27.
27-3 Packers win for Jordan.
Did you
I
say 27-3?
23.
Oh,
I might
okay.
have
Sorry,
mumbled.
sorry.
I have a
It
tenant.
caught, no, the audio cut out
Ah,
before you
no,
said.
27-23 for the Packers. I'm going 30-24 Packers. Um, in which case Braden Darvison makes 2 field goals. Big smile. Um, spoiler alert, folks. If you haven't listened to the GSPN After Darks, which I know a lot of you haven't, go subscribe at gspn.info to listen to all the GSPN After Dark episodes. They're fun as shit. Uh, I said on those pods, on one of those pods, that the Packers were starting 10-0 this year, and that I would not be
You
surprised.
did.
I would not be surprised if that happens. I even put my money where my mouth is, and I made a bet that the Packers could go 5-0 because like you couldn't do 10-0. It was the highest number I could
Yeah.
go just to start 5-0. So I will be writing those predictions as evidenced by our predictions at the end of this pod. So keep a lookout for my update on that. You won't hear the end of it if they go 10-0. That is a goddamn promise.
Oh, I know, and I wouldn't want to hear the end of it
Yeah,
because that is the
talk,
ultimate call your shot
talking to
victory
you, Ty.
style.
Ty was my biggest. Uh,
No, I felt like I was.
well, both of you,
I was.
the both of you. Regardless. All right,
Ty and
folks.
I were aligned.
Yes, you guys were. All right, folks. It is 8:15 Wednesday morning. I'm not sure when this will be updated or uploaded. For sure by Thursday morning. So if you listen to this Thursday morning, the Packers play in like 36 hours, and that's exciting to listen to. If you listen to this Wednesday night, and I somehow got it up late tonight, thanks for being such an early listener. Regardless, the Packers play football, real football, very soon. I am very, very excited. Thank you all for listening and joining us on this. What are you doing?
Riding the waves.
If you had any more reason to go subscribe to the YouTube people, if you're listening, we're pretty close to 2,000. So if you could go do that, that'd be pretty cool. We're at
Ooh,
1940. We've been stuck at 1940 for a little bit. So go
I didn't
subscribe
get a year either.
to the YouTube GSPN. No, I think it's Eurostep Podcast Network. Hold on, I gotta make sure I got this right. Um,
It it would be if you type it honestly. If you type in GSPN, it'll show
it
up. If
is
you type in
Eurostep
Eurostep,
Podcast Network is the name on YouTube. We are at 1940. I'm pretty sure exactly. Um, so go push us to that 2,000 mark. I'd appreciate it for sure. But if any more reason to do it, you can just see Jordan do this as I pantomime it again as he's riding the waves. Regardless, the Packers play football very soon. Thank you for listening and supporting us and joining us as we embark on this 2024 season. He is still doing it. Thank you for listening. Go check out everything else GSPN wise at gspn.info. That is the link to our premium Substack page where you can read all of our articles we write. Jordan and I are both having articles published on the Packers this week before the game on Friday. Those are all there. A lot of good writing being done over there. The GSPN After Dark, which is our premium podcast, uploaded once a week. Just a variety of topics. They're always a lot of fun. Unfiltered, Numac and Andrew and everybody else. So you get to see a lot of fun topics over there. And then all your GSPN pods ad free that get uploaded right to your Spotify, Apple Podcast, or wherever you listen to your podcast feed. Once you just connect your RSS feed. So if you really don't like ads, $8 a month, and you can not have to listen to them for the GSPN slate of podcasts. Go check out all the Bucks pods, Eurostep and Win in Six, as well as Cruising for a Bruising with Adam and Andrew as the Brewers keep doing their playoff push, and make time for this with Adam and Andrew as well. Thank you for listening, guys. We'll be back in your podcast feeds after the game on Friday. Stay tuned for, I don't know, we'll do it live on the air again. Jordan, are we going live after the game on Thursday or on Friday?
I think I think so.
I think we might have to. So,
We might have to.
hey, as we said, go subscribe to the YouTube channel to be notified when we're going live for that game. So, go, like I said, subscribe. Thank you for supporting us. I did all the tangents and the promotions are ready. I'll cut it off here. Thank you for listening. And Jordan, thank you.
Thank you.